Welcome to this podcast. Here we discuss introspection, being, development, and all the good stuff. Welcome, this is Baruch Menashe. There's a convergence between art and the sciences that I think is worth noting and maybe to take a particular stance in that arena, especially in regards to films, because I guess this summer there's this opposition of Oppenheimer and Barbie, like these two worlds, and the intellectual strata, if you call them, are engaging in real dialogue regarding the specifics, the messages, what the details, the particulars, really as if we were in a museum looking at a piece of art as a community and really engaging in a discussion about it in a productive manner. So without further ado, let's engage ourselves in this dialogue, and let's take Barbie for example, because it's a perfect film that will resonate for years to come in the masculine feminine conversation. And I can't remember another film that had such potency or such exposure to the different roles, the complications, in a very direct manner. One might say too direct, like don't tell us all the problems there is, like show don't tell, but there was a lot of showing going on. Okay, so being not a film critic or one who's versed well in the field, I'm just as an onlooker using that as a context for this conversation. Okay, so first note, we must, if we're going to successfully critique a movie or review or understand the deeper meaning of a movie, then we want to understand the masculine, and especially in this context, we want to understand the masculine and feminine role in its universal sense, and then we could use that as a layer to understand the movie itself, as opposed to approaching the movie itself and saying how they viewed it. I have a very simple universal definition, because as you go up in the hierarchy of universality, you want to be as simple as possible. You don't want to get complex, because then we're not covering all the fields there is, because it's a really complex subject. It's the human being, it's the human dynamic. Okay, so first let's define femininity. Okay, so actually masculinity first. So masculinity would be what the feminine wants, and apostrophe what the feminine needs. Those are two important points, because really it's what the feminine wants. Meaning masculinity provides what the feminine wants. Meaning there's nothing particular about a masculine figure without a feminine counterpart. It's just a human. The masculinity is deeply engaged in a dynamic with the femininity, so that what makes masculinity, and we'll see with femininity, is its counterparts opposing dynamic, or opposing interaction with that part. So, and I say need and want because need is the underlying layer of personhood, meaning what we need is not necessarily what we want, and what we want is not necessarily what we need. But if we calibrate it right, really it's the same thing, because we should be wanting what we need and we should need what we want. But because we're complex creatures, we're not going to always do that. And generally speaking, actually, we won't always do that, because we work in little glimpses of light. And in those glimpses of light, we might think the scenario is the full picture, but generally speaking, it's not. So that would be on the side of femininity. Now, masculinity, and I stay away from the male-female, because the male-female could take roles in this. So it's not male-female, it's masculinity and femininity. So the masculinity is, I would say, the So okay, we covered masculinity. Sorry, the femininity is, I would say, the revelation of its existence or vitality. So that femininity is waiting for the masculine to reveal itself. It relies on the masculine to give it proper definition. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist on its own. It just means it doesn't have a great definition. It's not beautiful till someone says it's beautiful. It's inherently something. It's not nothing. If we removed all masculinity from the world, there's still something there. There's femininity. But its interaction is the masculine allowing it to be revealed for its full potential. Okay? Those are the most universal definitions I could come up with at the moment. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into the film itself. In the beginning, it's femininity being explored, meaning the Barbie world, just the perfect world till it gets unperfect, till we find flaws in it, is femininity. The viewer, in truth, the viewer is the masculine, because really there's no feminine without masculine. It's just it. It's just being. But there's a showiness, right? Barbie has a showiness, and there's a lot of, oh, we're all happy and we're all dancing together and we're all in this beautiful union. And someone needs to appreciate that. So you could say that each person is happy about the other part being happy, but there needs to be somebody that's interacting with that, that's unhappy, quote unquote, or somebody that needs to be happy. So just as the Barbie doll makes the player of the Barbie doll happy, so too the viewer of this movie, of this film, is the masculine viewing it. Okay, so that's just, even when there's just femininity, it's not femininity because there's an engagement. And if there's no engagement, there's no dynamic, then it would just cease. We could imagine Barbie world without anybody looking at it, and just in a little forest, and there's no video of it, there's no recording of it, there's no other existence. Eventually the femininity would die out and there would be something. It just wouldn't be a feminine experience. The colors wouldn't matter, because it's not being revealed to anybody. Nobody's interacting to it outside of the feminine dynamic. Now, it could be some people in the Barbie world would take on the masculine role, but that wasn't being portrayed in the film. So that would be one point. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. Let's see how it breaks down. Okay, so first of all, when she enters the real world, there's kind of a reveal of true dynamics, which is so healthy. I think that's really what we want to explore. We want to explore the real dynamics of the world, and that there's these masculine and feminine, because, as we said, they're universal, and there's two parts to it. But then there's the toxic aspects of each. Okay, so right away, there's extremes. The film doesn't cover natural, and we might say that we walk away from the film and say the answer to all this is none of this, meaning back to the home where there's a proper masculine and proper feminine and proper children being received. Not that the children need to be proper, but that there's a proper continuity between parents and children, and there's dynamics running. The home is just functioning without society per se interfering with every aspect. Okay, so that's what one would walk away from the film. But in this scenario, we're seeing only the extremes of masculine and feminine in its broken sense. And the way masculine and feminine break down, because they're interacting, they're a dynamic, they're not definitions on their own, is when they're not taking into account the full extent of their counterparts. Okay, so first we see the toxic masculinity. Okay, so what that would be is the masculine not tending to what the feminine needs or wants. Okay, so we might say that the feminine needs to be revealed as the sexual object that they are, but if we really study the universal person, the general person, we would say that and a million other things need to be revealed, but definitely not straight to that, and definitely not in a way where the sexual objects being revealed in contrast to other things. You want to bring out, masculine should want to bring out the sexual aspect of of the femininity, but that should be only in the backdrop of so much more of the human, so that nothing gets lost. Meaning, if I go to somebody on the street and say that they're perfectly smart and they're a random stranger, they might enjoy that, that compliment, but it won't have any meaning. And if anything, it'll just be like, maybe they're critiquing me. Like right away, they'll be like, maybe they're thinking I'm not smart, maybe because I'm not covering the full human person. I'm not taking into account the full component. So I think that the debate is already out that would be something that the woman wouldn't need without, meaning even if the femininity would need that, it would be in the backdrop of so much more. And if it's overly focused, then what happens is all the real needs, all the other real needs are getting neglected. Okay, so that's on one side. And then the film continues and it covers the other side, the toxic femininity. And toxic femininity is like this. She walks into the school, and right away there's this boy that says don't mess with her because she's off limits and she'll just whatever. She's not worth engaging with. Now, you never want to be in a position the feminine should never want to be in a position where nobody will reveal her beauty because, and I say her and like the feminine, like nobody will reveal her beauty in a way where things actually happen, where she actually feels beautiful. Because if there's too many roadblocks, then there's no, like, to get in, it just will never happen. So we see that interaction, that there's this complete cutoff, that I don't need masculinity to feel vitality, but I'm not ready to take on the role of masculinity and start to bring other people to vitality. So it's in limbo. And she could take that masculine role, but she's doing neither, and she's destroying the masculine-feminine dynamic. Now, it's another conversation of what happens when one just completely destroys that itself, and we might say that the deepest dynamics of a person are gone, so then all other dynamics are gone, and relationships are weak, and there's deep depression because it's complete isolation emotionally from one's own emotion, from the world's emotional states and from their own emotional states. It's a pathway to hell, I believe. So you see her, and she looks like, in a way, that depressed person that could possibly be suicidal. Like, there is that. And right away, okay, we got the two extremes. Cover that, right? And then we go to the dynamic of mother-daughter. Okay, so what we're trying to do is now say, okay, let's piece together the family in a way where we could have some coherency of a masculine-feminine dynamic. So, and what the film tries to do is say that really the problem is with the mother, not with the daughter. Okay, so that's a side note. That's a relationship aspect. Why push that agenda? Like, is it generational, not generational? Okay, that's something to discuss for another time as well. Okay, next. As we said, we covered the extremes of either and or, and now we're looking for redemption. Okay, so Barbie Land is perfect femininity, but completely disconnected from the true dynamic of masculinity and femininity. So it's a utopian world that's only exists because you're watching it or you're playing with it. Like, you're watching it as a film or you're playing with it in real life. And even as an inanimate object, because it's disconnected from the real world, so it's inanimate. Animate is connected. It's vital, right? It expresses itself. It's inanimate, the doll, and then just by playing with it, which is a deep motif, just by playing with it and expressing one's own discontent, the mother's discontent. We think the daughter, but the mother, it's the same idea. Discontent of life onto the doll starts to receive that bad energy. So the inanimate object, as disconnected from masculine and feminine dynamics, because Barbie world actually is inanimate. So it doesn't really have masculine and feminine, but because someone is playing with her in the real world, in the real dynamics of masculine and feminine, she is causing the inanimate object to just get even more decrepit than being inanimate, which is hard to understand, but inanimate objects have something, and when you impose even more negativity of life, somehow the inanimate object starts to break down itself. So what happens is we're expecting the inanimate object, the doll, to go and now redeem the animate human that just completely failed in the masculine feminine dynamic, to a point where she's starting to put all her bad energy on an inanimate object. It's like, if you got to the point of using your doll to just express all your bad feelings as an adult, right, as an adult woman, then the only redemption is an inanimate object coming to life and helping you, because there obviously is no redemption in your own world, in your own dynamics, in your own people. So we have this message that the world is so chaotic that they can't handle their self. Okay, so that's another point. And it's chaotic in the masculine-feminine dynamic. It's chaotic in the relationships. But that is one of the huge components of the fabric of society. So we're covering a lot there. Okay, so now, the inanimate object, the doll, and the mother decide to go back to the fake world, the world that doesn't cover dynamics properly. It's not integrated with realness, with human emotion, life, death, all those things, especially that motif of death, right? And they're going to try to, we're not sure what they're going to try to do, but they're going to try to the doll is going to try to redeem this broken human being and their dynamic mother and daughter, but it's really this masculine feminine dynamic, if you're studying that a little bit more carefully. And also she's going to get redeemed by bringing the real world with her to this like fake land, to teach them that there's something more than just inanimate life. Because, well, we're looking at the world and saying how messed up, because there's this toxic masculinity and we'll call it toxic femininity, and people are not integrating properly. It's just it's a mess. It's better than Barbie Land, because in that land, in that world, there's no dynamic at all. It's inanimate. So she, understandably, at the end of the movie, at the end of the film, wants to go to that world despite its problems, because it's life, and life is good with its problems versus death even without its problems. So there's a real push for life in this ultimate analysis. Okay, so going back to that fake world, into that fantasy, I forgot to mention the masculine. It's funny because in the movie there's also this neglect, but there's this Ken that comes along and explores his masculinity and recognizes that in the real world he could get his expression, just like the femininity. Barbie comes to the real world and realizes she could get her she could get real femininity, not the fake stuff. So too, he goes and says, I could get real masculinity, not the fake stuff. So he comes back and brings it, but he brings it in a way that's toxic, because he goes to the real world and he gets exposed to a certain toxic aspect of it. What does it mean, toxic? We explained already that it's not fulfilling the woman's needs. So let's go straight to that. Okay, so he takes over, and it's this like 80s, 90s masculinity of like men are on the top, somehow women are working for them, they're helping them out, they're serving them. It's like the parties. It's like all those imaginatory, like, palaces of the ancient times, where the guy is sitting in the robe and there's all these maidens walking around. Okay, so, and these are originally girls that were perfect in their femininity in a different sense, and now they're falling to the dynamic of masculinity as portrayed by Ken. Okay, so right away, I think there's a good feeling, because we could say that good, like everybody's happy and there's real dynamics actually going on, where there's an interaction that's actually fun or productive, because before that there was just this confusion, like, who am I, who are you, why are we interacting, because we're inanimate, we're dolls. But now we're not dolls anymore, so we're gonna get into the confusion of life, and the femininity wants this sort of like fake love or admiration, or way to be revealed into the world in that sense, and the masculinity wants to provide that to the femininity in some sense. But then it's complete reverse, where once the dynamics of real masculinity and femininity enter the fake world, it's toxic. Okay, so why is it toxic? That's the question here. Okay, so on the side of the masculinity, it becomes toxic because he doesn't care about what the feminine wants or even needs. He kind of does, and he does it subconsciously, but he's more focused on his own self-expression in what the femininity needs or wants. It's subtle. At the same time, the feminine recognizes that for the first time I could be part of something bigger and be part of the dance in a much more true sense. But at the same time, what I have to do is subjugate a certain intellectual exploration or possibility, because I am dependent on the masculine to be revealed. Okay, so I would say that the masculinity becomes more toxic in that scenario of the palace than the femininity, because, and we'll see why that is. Actually, let's go there now. Like, when they try to teach these radicalized feminine to turn back and go back to their Barbie ways of true femininity, whatever that is, they do that by saying how foolish what they're doing is. What they're doing is they're trying to cut down the dynamic. They're trying to say that, why are you dependent on the dynamic? Look at you. Your whole self-expression is dependent on the masculine. By the way, that could be looked at as a critique or just life, Femininity gets expressed in its full form through masculinity. That's just dynamics of femininity and masculinity. But here, there's a small component where there's a mistake, which is that it's only taking into account what the feminine wants, not so much what the feminine needs. Like, the feminine needs a healthy, normal relationship that's stable, that they're not in a place of subjugation, and there's a place of their expression in the dynamic where they can influence the masculine. But that's not really happening here. So there is a subjugation. And what the masculine is doing, the big mistake here is, true, my masculinity is only here because of femininity. But what he's doing is he's saying that these this feminine picture in front of me, I don't need to provide all those needs. I need to cover the surface layers. Or in fact, those surface layers will make me be expressed in a more surface way. So they'll do very sexual things. They'll do very surface things. They're not exploring the depth of the dynamics. So all of a sudden society becomes surface because the masculinity is not really providing true value to the femininity, but he is giving some sort of love, attention, something. Okay, so really the breakdown of this scenario is the fact that there's no depth in the dynamic, which is natural. You would imagine that an inanimate object that all of a sudden got into the animate world, exploring masculine and feminine dynamics and relationships, would start out at a surface place. They wouldn't start out all of a sudden the depth of life. And Barbie's there to come and say, I've seen the real world in its more deep sense, because we could say that she took a deeper accounting when she was in the real world of real emotion and real dynamics than Ken did. And she's coming in saying, okay, now I'm here. Technically, she's really here to fix Ken. Like, you went out to the real world and took the first thing that feminine wants, and I went out to the real world and saw what really feminine needs, and how that could be expressed in a masculine feminine dynamic. So she goes about it by going straight to the female and fixing this. I think that's the first mistake. The way to go about it is in through the dynamic. Now, the Ken Barbie dynamic, to expose in a feminine way that I'm not being actualized properly. Like, you are doing a good job in actualizing the Barbie girls in some sense, but you're not actualizing them in their fullest potential, so you're failing in your masculine role. And to do this in the right way, that would be the best path. But she goes the shortcut, because that takes a long time and conversation, of just trying to get the feminine to band together, whatever that means, because it's one feminine and one masculine. There's no group feminine, group masculine. That doesn't work. It's just each dynamic, you're helping me, I'm helping you, in a deep relationship sense. You can't be in relationship to the world, and the world can't be in relationship to you. Groups are not in relationship. There's an idea that all are connected to, but deep intimate relationship is only in the individual level. But that's another conversation. But they group together and they decide to retake their old femininity. That's a mistake, right? Right away we say you don't want to go to the inanimate state, especially because now you know a better world, yet you're going back to that state. You need to integrate both worlds, because you're just dealing with two worlds now. You can't just go back and act like nothing happened. But anyways, they attempt to do this, and the masculines start to walk away and fail. But they do it, and the movie covers that very well. They do it in a very feminine grace, which is almost like a kudos to the Ken, which is, oh, you're taking the masculine role, I'm going to take the feminine role. Perfect. Whatever. Like, we're here to try to work together in a dynamic, so I will be and technically speaking, Ken, if he really wanted to be successful in his agenda, would continue into the feminine role deeply, to a point where the feminine might want to retake their femininity in a more they want to take the femininity away from the masculinity because they took it. Whatever, they might go back to their natural, and that's really the ending of the movie, where it's biological, where she's going to see the gynecologist. Where the answer might be that, yeah, Ken needs to take the feminine role right now. Barbie needs to take the masculine role, because whatever, she needs to bring that to the world, because they weren't successful. She saw the real world, and masculine wasn't taking care of the female properly, so at least let's the female take care of the masculine properly and turn into the feminine, turn into masculinity, and take care at that role, and can do the feminine well to a point where she all she has left to negotiate with is her own body, and maybe she'll get to a place where I'll return to my femininity, I'll give back the masculinity, but we're going to do it where we're not reverting back to its earlier stage. We're going to stick to a new world order that we already explored each other's roles so much, and we're not content in that because of biological reasons. And so we're going to go back, and you're going to be the masculine figure who's taking care of the feminine needs and wants, and the feminine will accept the vulnerability that she needs the masculine to reveal herself in her full potential. So that being said, that's that. I've heard some other reviews on the film that say this is like a push of a feminist agenda. And I don't agree, because I think this film is not really giving answers. It's really just expressing deep questions. Like, if this movie walked away with answers, we would also have a problem, because this is a complicated subject. So it's best to view it as something that just explores the problems at hand in the real world, and the problems at hand in fantasy world, and the problems at hand when there's no dynamics or when there's too many dynamics. And it leaves it with the ambiguity of like where to go. And I think that such a production is worthwhile to view, because it really creates the mind. It really creates a scenario where the mind wants to think about what is occurring, what is happening, and from there they could bring other films, other art, other movie, other conversation that gives better answers and more clarity to the subject. Now, in terms of like film aspects and plot lines and stuff like that, you could rely on the real movie critics to cover that. But I'm just talking about the theme of masculine and feminine throughout the movie, and exploring the questions at hand. Okay, yeah, one more point before I leave you guys. There's this speech, a real speech, that the woman can be thin, but she can't be told that she's thin. She can't say that she's thin. And there's all this like paradox that the feminine needs to be. Yeah, that's true. And the masculine also has a paradox, because it's a dynamic. And any dynamic, the paradox is that I am human, but I need you. I'm human as an individual, but I need you as another human to be an individual, or to express myself properly. And that goes for both masculine and feminine. So there's this inherent paradox in each side. And the masculine could complain the same idea. Like, I need to provide for her, but I can't act like I'm only providing for her. I need to give her independence, but make sure that that I recognize her, but not over recognize. Not, there's all that the same paradoxes there too. Now, the answer to the paradox is more connection, so that, yeah, you're right. There's this paradox because she has to be thin, but she can't say she's thin. And the masculine, the answer to that is to have a good masculine figure who understands that, so that he understands that there's a struggle here for her own femininity. And so he's going to navigate those waters in a way where she'll feel comfortable and feel revealed, feel herself and her full vitality, but not be in a place where she's in this arrogant, I'm thin type of world where she loses her femininity and starts to take on the masculine role. And the masculine will counter that and say, no, don't worry, I will be the one to tell you you're thin. You don't have to say it for yourself, because if you say it for yourself, you become masculine and nobody wants to engage with you, because then you're just both, and then you're just either God or the devil. Like, you're just not human. So the masculine comes forward and says, you are thin. I'm covering that part of what you can't do yourself because it will cause you havoc in your femininity. But at the same time, you need to be thin because I need to be attracted or connected to that femininity. Meaning, what the masculine needs, which is to find his expression in beauty, find his expression in the counterpart, because masculinity alone is like this island, like the man on an island, right? He's just, there's nothing doing. Whatever he does doesn't matter to the world. Like, he wants it to matter, but he wants it to matter in a nice, thin way, whatever that means, in an aesthetically pleasing way. So the answer is good masculinity. The answer is not fight masculinity, because what happens is you fight the dynamic, and then Barbie world reverts back to the non-dynamic, complete depressed, non-relationship place. But that can't really happen because they already know too much. They're self-conscious, right? She's starting to think about death. They started to become self-conscious already, so they don't have it in them to revert to that. So what happens is, that's the thing. Like, when you cut to the image of that girl in school, and she's this chaotic mess because she's not engaging in her dynamics at all. It's like just completely cut off from either side, the femininity or the masculinity. What she is not just plain average. She's depressed because she knows more. Depression and self-consciousness come together. So when you know more, you expect yourself to enact that knowledge. And when that's not being enacted, hence depression. Depression shows up because why are you not enacting what you know? Like, you know you could walk, so why are you not walking? You know you could sleep. You know you could wake up. You know you could eat. You know you could dance. You know you could sing. You could know. And why you're not doing it, so the depression says, wait, you're not meeting the knowledge that you have. Now, if you want to go to a world where you remove all knowledge, it can't just occur. Self-consciousness happened. Once one knows, they can't just unknow that they're human and they're this social being. They can't unknow that. So it's automatically depression, and unfortunately, in some societies and some worlds, it's suicidal. It's just removing the entire existence itself. So Barbie world can't really revert to the old ways because they're too self-conscious now. The real world is way too self-conscious, so they can't go back. So the only answer really is good masculinity and good femininity in a real dynamic, which is the home. So as I said in the beginning, the answer to... You want to walk away from Barbie saying the answer is a home filled with good masculinity, good femininity, and children, the production of that. Because if good masculinity and good femininity are not producing anything, they're in a dance, and they're almost like in an island in a way, but they're not like enjoying it thoroughly, where... And when I say children, I don't mean actual physical children, but like seed, like they're doing things in the world because of their dynamic. It's mattering to existence. It's mattering to the collective. And that ultimately brings the redemption that the Barbie movie started out with, and what 2023 is questioning, because we're obviously engaging in the conversation. So I think the answer is a homebody, but it's not a homebody where it's like, okay, let's go tribal and everybody go off into their own abyss with their family. We have this high level of self-consciousness in regards to masculine and feminine, which never occurred in the ancient world, and it's just coming out now. But that doesn't mean so the answer to that is to engage in better masculinity and better femininity in the home body and in the world, and then there's a redemption. So you need the film. It's not like you could just cut the film, go to the family. You need the film to explore the problems, because even in the family, you're going to have to engage in these perfected masculine, feminine dynamics that need to be modernized by the fact that the feminine and the masculine are both changing, and the world is changing, and our interaction and perceptions with the world are changing. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks for listening. And if you would like to see the video version of this, check out my channel on YouTube.